Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and MBs, we got Christian Divyne in the building. TikTok extraordinaire, friend to many friends of the show. This is our first time meeting.
Actually,
and it's a rather awkward introduction. I apologize. I was in the midst of trying to shovel my food in my daily eating hour. But glad to have you here. We're going to talk about a bunch of different things today. But so far, is this your first time in LA or no?
Second time, but first full I've been here a week. So yeah.
How do you like it so far? What happened? You just came in the worst possible moment you could have.
The worst part, I flew in and the plane wouldn't properly land because the fires were literally just starting. So no, this is the worst possible time to be here. But it's cool. It's things been chill. It's a cool place. They don't have big dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, she's still a puppy, but I'm actually wearing my merch with her on it.
Oh, word.
Yeah. All right. Well, Christian, for those who don't know, how would you describe yourself? What are your political leanings?
Pretty far left leaning. I consider myself a socialist, super hard cut. Yeah, I just say straight up socialist, and whatever follows up with whatever you assume about that.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. And how long? What were you doing before TikTok?
Theater. I still do theater, but theater's my
classic.
Yeah.
Classic theater kid.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been on TikTok? Because that's where you popped off, right? That's where you started.
Yeah, since 2021. The first social media thing I ever did. But yeah,
okay.
January 2021. So it'll be 4 years. Probably today specifically.
Okay. So not to be audio Andy, but it'd be helpful if you could increase his microphone audio. Is that what it is? Is that
should I be right in it?
Cutting out? Ask about if his dad is a socialist. Wait, why?
My dad's a vampire. It's a whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Literally, it's very he used to sleep in a coffin. It's hard to explain, but yeah, my dad's not a socialist. That man is a capitalist till he dies.
Yeah, same. I feel that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were going to talk about the TikTok ban and what that will do to your career potentially as a TikTok content creator, first and foremost. But aside from that, we're currently in the process of covering this breaking news story where Hamas is seemingly very close to an agreement with Israel, and it seems as though the Trump train is here. There's a lot of pressure that have been applied by the Trump administration through, harsh words. And obviously, and I know you follow this stuff closely as well, you are familiar, as am I, as are many people in this community, that the only hurdle in the pathway towards finalizing a ceasefire agreement, a permanent ceasefire agreement, has never really been Hamas.
No.
It has never been Hamas whatsoever. Hamas has actually brought forth, I believe, more than 39 different ceasefire negotiations since October 10. Since October 10, 2023, not October 10th, 2024. Some of these agreements most of the agreements, including the one that was finalized and voted by the UN at the General Assembly on, were direct Hamas proposals. Joe Biden famously presented it as an Israeli proposal. And yet, even though it was supposed to be an Israeli proposal, Israel was the party that refused to sign on to the proposal. Israel also continued killing numerous civilians, the tens of thousands. We will unfortunately not know the true estimate of the death count, even though Lancet says that the direct death counts are up to 46,000, which is a dramatic undercount, and that the number of casualties is a direct consequence of Israel shutting off all of the hospitals and destroying the electrical grid and destroying all semblance of civil society and civil life in the Gaza Strip, means that the number is far, far larger than that. Israel's also obviously in the process killed almost every single journalist and engaged in what is known as a scholasticide, a deliberate targeting of scholars in the Gaza Strip, and the destruction of virtually every single institution of education in the Gaza Strip as well. But also, in terms of the conversation surrounding this ceasefire process, Israel assassinated the principal negotiator, the civilian chief of the Hamas Politburo, Ismail Haniyeh, when he was visiting Tehran on Iranian soil. A double Monty, if you will, assassinating the principal negotiator who had never held a weapon. Okay, something to remember, something to consider. The leader of Hamas at the time and the principal negotiator in the ceasefire talks. Yet another instance of Israel openly showing the rest of the world that they are not interested in a real ceasefire whatsoever and only continuing the death and destruction campaign. There are a multitude of different reasons as to why Israel continued this death and destruction campaign, this genocide. There are selfish reasons and personal reasons, like the one that Benjamin Netanyahu, the reasons as to why for Benjamin Netanyahu's personal gain is because he doesn't want the prosecution that he was able to put a stay on because of October 7 to continue once he is removed from office. And I suspect something that I've talked about quite a bit was that much like Ronald Reagan, I believe Donald Trump also cut a side deal with Benjamin Netanyahu when he was running for office. This was, of course, still preventable by a competent administration in charge, like the one that Joe Biden was not, that could have said, you're done. You're stopping this genocide immediately. And they could have done this at any given point. And yet they chose not to do so because of their grand design for the region before they gear up for the real enemy, the larger enemy, the more consequential enemy, China. Having said that, however, there is a ceasefire negotiation. I don't know if you read into this at all, if you're familiar with this.
US ceasefire negotiation, no.
Here's Jeremy Scahill saying, important to note that the Gaza ceasefire deal that may be reached soon is overwhelmingly consistent with the deal Hamas officially agreed to on July 2nd. Biden allowed Netanyahu to torch that deal and continue the genocide with a steady flow of U.S. weapons and political support. Here's one of the stories I wrote about in the Gaza ceasefire exchange of captives deal that could have been signed in the summer and how the U.S. facilitated Netanyahu's sabotage. The dominant U.S.-Israeli narrative is that it has been Hamas hindering or obstructing the ceasefire deal in Gaza, and that is an epic lie that Anthony Blinken has promoted more than anyone else on the planet. All right. Hasan, let the boy speak. Lamont. Okay, you're right.
No. I'm chilling. I'm just here, dude.
Yeah, I wanted to cover this stuff to the best of my ability first and foremost, and give you guys a little bit of background. But that is the case. Also, here is Noga Tarnopolsky reporting. In case you were wondering, the Philadelphia axis, which was a major point of contention that Benjamin Netanyahu utilized in the Netzarim corridor. Those are two specific lines that they wanted to cut through Gaza. The Philadelphia corridor being the southernmost point that connects the Gaza Strip with Egypt, that borders Egypt, and the Netzarim corridor that goes across the Gaza Strip, separating it in half. Those were points of contention that Benjamin Netanyahu added on to the ceasefire negotiation with the express purpose of continuing the bombing campaign and basically putting it in as a poison pill provision into the ceasefire negotiations. This reality was completely ignored by mainstream institutions in the United States of America. This reality was completely ignored by the State Department. They actually actively lied about Benjamin Netanyahu actively undermining the ceasefire talks. You know what this reality was? Who didn't ignore this reality? The hostage families in Israel. They openly penned letters to Israeli publications at the time, damning Benjamin Netanyahu to hell, openly stating him as the only pathway towards peace and a ceasefire negotiation and a way to finally permanently secure the well-being of the immediate family members that were being held hostage in Gaza. Okay, I'm not interviewing Christian right now. Shut the fuck up, okay? Shut up. I'm not doing that, okay? This is not an introduction. This is not an interview. I'm covering the news currently. We will get to that in a second. Would you have rather had me make Christian sit over there outside as I continue to explain the situation,
That's it.
go ahead.
Please chill out, y'all. That's all.
Yes, I permit that person for that. I did. And yes, I do talk to them like this all the time. They need to be yelled at.
I mean that's real. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. All right. In any case, the great achievement of the dramatic victory of which one said that anyone calling for Israel's withdrawal from it was a leftist traitor funded by the defeated Americans. The IDF will withdraw 100% from the Philadelphia Axis in the phase 1 of this deal, according to Chaim Levinson of Channel 12, I guess. Or is he Channel 12 or is he Haaretz? I don't know. It's in Hebrew. Okay. So this could have been avoided. The past 7 months of death and destruction did not need to exist. And yet it happened. I can't begin to explain how much I hate Biden in the midst of all of this. But here is Jacob Magid from Times of Israel. Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff held a tense meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu on Saturday night, during which the former leaned hard on the Israeli premier to accept compromises necessary to secure a hostage deal by January 20th. Two officials familiar with the matter told Times of Israel. Witkoff's pressure on Netanyahu appears to have had an effect, with the two officials familiar with the negotiations saying that key gaps were filled in the talks over the weekend. Spokespeople for both offices didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. While Prime Minister Long pushed for a temporary ceasefire that amounted to the first phase of the three-stage proposal Israel submitted in May, the deal being finalized is increasingly closer to the original offer, with clauses connecting the first phase with two others, making it harder for Israel to resume fighting. We have maintained this level of power and influence over Israel since day one. Day one. This could have happened on October 10, 2023. So just remember that when people say, oh, Biden was trying his very best. And remember every single person that lied in that process as well. Every single person in the media, or like the likes of Maddie Iglesias, No Opinion, all these like Twitter losers that kept repeating the position over and over again that Biden was trying his best. And you guys simply don't understand that Israel's a foreign ally. They're a sovereign state. They can get their weapons from elsewhere. That is a lie. Some people are stupid enough to believe that lie and repeat it. And many are openly lying to the American public. Okay? Anyway. Do you have any input on this? Sorry. We're gonna watch the 60 Minutes video as well after this.
Okay, no, you're right. I think like
all right, Spit King.
Yeah. I think one of the funniest things to me, it's not funny, but like something that kept regularly happening was like a news report would drop and it would be like, Biden's really angry at Netanyahu today. Like he's so mad he's gonna do something this next week. And that's been like the entire like year and a half since then. So
yeah. Now that Biden is also leaving office, a lot of these people are coming out of the woodwork to be like, oh, well, you know, Biden's legacy is forever tarnished by supporting this genocide. And it's like, dude, he was doing that for years. He was doing that for the past year. Like, what are you saying? You're chirping now that it's like, you know, now that it's in its closing stage?
Well, I most definitely think that people dead ass believed it. Like they believe that like every time like it's like we are working on a deal and it's just Hamas that's stopping them, even though like every deal that was offered got shut down because like I think a lot of the Hamas deals just included like leaving, like the Israeli troops leaving, and that was like not something that Netanyahu was ever willing to do in the first place.
No, the point is Netanyahu doesn't jump without America saying jump. This is why I kept reiterating this point over and over again that like a lot of people, I think, misunderstand the dynamic between Israel and the United States of America. Some of that actually leans into anti-Semitic territories as well, where they're like, Israel has an outsized level of influence and control over American society and American public officials. And it's like, no, ultimately, it is America that wants Israel to do this. And I think that's hard for a lot of people. Like, it's a hard pill for a lot of Americans to swallow, where they're like, why is this like tiny foreign ally of ours getting so much attention? and so much power, it can't be that our leaders are using our tax dollars and our publicly funded research and our weapon systems to allow these atrocities to continue. And I think it's a little bit of American exceptionalism and a little bit of confusion coming from mainstream outlets that kind of muddy the waters between the dynamic between like America and Israel. But the reality has always been clear. America wanted this to happen. Okay? America wanted this to happen. Sure, there are actors within the Israeli government that have different ambitions, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the dynamic of it's not about permission. It's about simply offering the logistics to be able to pull this genocide off.
Yeah, no, big time. Because it's just like not possible without our funding. Like at any point, at any moment.
Yeah. Look at the date of this article. Biden expresses frustration with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, confirms 3-day pause request.
There's like 50 of those articles.
Yeah.
He's so next time. I mean, even when I can't remember how many months ago it was where they're like, if they don't stop, when they stopped like food deliveries from going into Gaza, they're like, if they don't stop this by this date, we're gonna stop funding them. And then there's like the next funding session rolled around and they threw another $1 billion.
In the USS Liberty, is the USS Liberty not an example of Israel dog-walking the U.S. in at least one instance pretty hard? I understand the U.S. has the upper hand, but how do you reconcile such counterexamples? Great question, Chatter. The answer is clear. Do you think that the American government cares about the well-being of American service members? If that was the case, why did they invade Iraq illegally, where 13,000 U.S. service members died? America does not care about its own service members. America doesn't care about its own citizens. You don't have health care. How do you reconcile that reality? America does not and has never given a shit about even its own civilian population that it's supposed to protect and serve. And it certainly doesn't care about its service members either. America also very clearly doesn't care about American citizens being killed. Because how many American citizens has Israel killed so far? Remember when Biden said, we are going, not a single every American's life is safe. Every American's life is of the utmost importance to us. He said that, and then Israel killed a bunch of American citizens in broad daylight, sometimes assassinating them with sniper rifles in the West Bank, not even in Gaza. Many instances in the West Bank, as a matter of fact. Biden didn't say a single damn thing about that. He didn't even punish Israel for those crimes either. So the USS Liberty is yet another example that proves the argument that I have, which is that, one, America doesn't care about its own citizens and certainly not about the lives of people living in the global south in general. Okay. But America also will let Israel do whatever it wants because ultimately Israel is incredibly valuable to the grand designs that America has in this resource-rich region. Okay? That's it. International pressure seemingly has also failed spectacularly. International organs of justice have failed to enforce some semblance of the international rule-based order that the United States was tasked with maintaining, which is a laughable notion, but I think it's more apparent now than ever before that no one ever cared about that. Okay? Is it still really that valuable, even after all this insane shit? Yes, because at its core, Westerners do not trust the volatile region to be in the hands of Muslim Arabs. They can cut security cooperation agreements. They can treat Egypt and Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf states as, partners in their crimes, but they do not have the same level of trust that they do for Israel. Israel is seen as the only extension of Western empire in the region, far beyond the potentially volatile Arab nations that could have their own version of a coup d'etat. Egypt comes to mind. Or even Saudi Arabia sometimes chooses not to play ball with Western powers at the end of the day. Look at OPEC Plus. in the aftermath of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This does not mean that the leadership of the Gulf nations and all of the other Arab security partners in the region are not also playing a very important role in this process of defending Israel and of continuing and maintaining Israel's genocide. They certainly do. I'm just simply telling you what America's opinion is and what the Western powers' opinions have always been. These guys are, at the end of the day, somewhat unreliable allies. And not because the leadership doesn't, defend American interest all the time, but because the population, unironically, is not a fan of Israel. That's why I always repeat the position that, like, the leadership of these Arab nations are oftentimes at odds with the broader population. So that creates a massive security risk if they were to treat Saudi Arabia, for example, like they do Israel. They can't. All it would take is for the people to rise up and overthrow their leadership. This most likely will never happen in Israel. Anyway, if we were to end aid to Israel, who would replace them as the bulwark of Western interests in the Middle East? Ideally, there would be none, but do you think Turkey would pick up the mantle? Turkey already plays a very formative role as a security partner and long-term consistent ally. But Turkey is also yet another example of the inconsistency that I just presented. Turkey plays both sides, for example. They have, they definitely fucked over Russia pretty aggressively in Syria. But having said that, despite having American nuclear arsenals in its American military bases inside of its national boundaries, Turkey still ends up every now and then playing the role of regional actor, playing the role of a regional power and exercising its own influence and own interests. This is also, this and the fact that that same volatility and the hostility against Israel exists within the broader public makes Turkey a less stable nation in comparison to Israel. Yeah, the leaders of those nations never represented the people's beliefs and opinions. The only reason they are in power is due to superpowers supporting them, and in return, they sell out the resources of the nations. Exactly. Stunned like the true believer he is, Netanyahu proxy Errol Segal laments, "We're the first to pay a price for Trump's election. The deal is being forced upon us. We thought we'd take control of northern Gaza, and they'd let us impede humanitarian aid."
אמרתי כאן שהראשונים לשלם את מחיר הבחירה שלו יהיו האוקראינים, טעיתי. יכול להיות שמי שמשלמים ראשונים את מחיר הבחירה של טראמפ זה אנחנו, כי הוא בעצם העסקה הזאת, אני לא רוצה להגיד, ננסים להיכנס לתוכה, לא להשתמש במילים, וגם אני לא יודע את כל הפרטים, ולכן אני אהיה יותר זהיר וכולי, אבל אני לא חושב שזה מה שאנחנו תכננו וזה מה שציפינו. שמנו את דברים.
Yeah, Trump is doing a woke ceasefire. He's doing a woke ceasefire in Israel. They won't let us continue to. What is this? Me. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, how are you doing? Journalist Ariel Segal. Journalist Ariel Segal close to Netanyahu. Oh, this is the same. Okay, yeah. It's the same thing that we just looked at. Looks like I was completely right that Trump was a lesser evil. I'm vindicated forever. Okay, take a week off, brother. What a fucking delusional. I literally said this. I said that Donald Trump is most likely going to be seen as the person responsible for the ceasefire months ahead of time. That doesn't make him the lesser evil, you dumb fuck. Yeah, wait till the second permanent annexation of West Bank happens under the Trump leadership, and then we'll talk about whether or not Trump is the lesser evil. You banned him till January 20th. I know. We'll come back during inauguration. Should not be overlooked that the ceasefire deal stuff is finally coming out at the same time that Biden is beginning his foreign policy legacy speech tour. Israel has turned humiliating him into a blood sport. Anyways, it's great the liberals spent years describing as something that could have been ended in a phone call as an impossible, unsolvable question that Biden has no control over. So Trump gets to come in with a deal as the statesman of the century. It sucks that Biden is so moronic that you can't give anyone credit for getting one over on him, because otherwise the way they turned the war into a milestone for his party and ended it to give Trump a win would look really sleek. I think it's insane that there were so many stupid morons in positions of power that kept reiterating this idea that, like, oh, it's just all out of Biden's hands.
Of course, Biden will try to take a victory lap, but there are not a lot of victories in sight. I would say that
this is Max Boot, by the way.
Foreign policy has been kind of a unsatisfying, middle-of-the-road muddle, where he has basically alienated pretty much everybody when it comes to both aid to Ukraine and aid to Israel, which have been the two big issues.
According to recent reporting, Israeli officials are reading the room and are now trying to ramp up their abilities to create their own arms and munitions so that so that way, if any superpower stops supporting them, which would never happen, they can still conduct genocide without worry. So who knows? Maybe Israel will take America's place in arming itself if we pull arms. Again, never going to happen. One, we're never going to pull arms. And two, Israel is not going to be able to maintain the same level of upkeep that the United States of America has. Russia can't even keep up with its own military ambitions and military goals that they had to rely on North Korea for additional both additional units and also artillery shells. So America itself can barely keep up with the needs in Ukraine. The notion that Israel's tiny ass, micronation ass, apartheid state ass would have the necessary resources, manpower, facilities to be able to fucking maintain a 7-front war on its own without American military and American weapons is so ridiculous. Without the United States' consistent involvement, without the United States' consistent aid, Israel could be defeated by Yemen, a nation that has very little resources and has experienced genocide until very recently by other Western allies. Okay? It's so ridiculous.
Of his administration, he hasn't done enough for one side and he's done too much for the other side. But he's kind of tried to, find this middle of the road path, which, may be the least dangerous path we can take. Of course, Biden will try.
Even Ultra Hawk Max Booth thinks Biden has done too much aid to Israel. Yeah. But let's get back to the ceasefire negotiations.
Of course, looming over all of it, the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump set for a week from today. Jeremy Diamond, thanks very much for that report.
President Biden will deliver what is expected to be his final foreign policy speech as president. A senior administration official says the president will argue he is giving President-elect Donald Trump a stronger hand than he inherited. With us now is Principal Deputy National Security Advisor John Feiner. John, thanks so much for being with us. Before I get to the speech, I do want to ask you about the negotiations for a hostage and ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. There are officials with Hamas saying they're close. So what's the status this morning?
So while this has fallen out of the headlines a bit, the United States has remained deeply engaged in trying to seek a deal that would...
By the way, Christian, feel free to chime in whenever you feel like it. I don't want to...
No, you're good. I'm Gucci. I'm chilling.
I feel like I'm just talking too much,
No, dude, it's your show.
First and foremost, bring the hostages home, but also halt the fighting, enable a massive influx of humanitarian assistance to Gaza. We have been focused on that deal for months, including day in, day out in recent weeks. There has been significant progress made. I am not going to sit here and make predictions. This has been a long time coming. We think a deal has been on the table that the parties should be able to agree to for quite some time. Hamas up till now has been resistant and reluctant to actually take that deal. Okay. Some of the gaps have narrowed, and we very much hope that this does come together, and we're going to stay on.
I like that they still maintain the position that Hamas has been reluctant to take this deal, like, over and over again, when it serves no purpose at this point. It's just like, but they will keep lying this way. And the reason why I think it's important to recognize why they keep lying this way, the reason why I think it's like instructive to understand why they keep lying this way is I hope this serves an educational purpose in you recognizing how previous so-called peace process negotiations have worked out and how they've been discussed in American media at the time. Okay? If the American State Department lies right now directly in front of your eyes all the time, relentlessly about Hamas being the spoiler to this deal, then don't you think maybe Bill Clinton was also lying back in the day? Don't you think maybe that every single time, it's just so strange that it was always the Palestinian envoys that were playing the role of spoilers over and over again and not actually showcasing their willingness to take on incredibly unreasonable demands being made by Israel as the so-called peace process turned into additional land grabs for Israel as they kept pushing. They kept pushing and pushing and pushing and making it seem like there was inevitably going to be a deal at the table at the end of the day, using that as shelter to continue illegally annexing and creating Bantustans in permanently occupied West Bank, illegally occupied West Bank.
Top of it, but I'm not going to sit here and predict exactly when it or where it'll come together.
No predictions, but are these talks in a different place today than they were a few days ago?
Fundamentally, we believe there is progress being made. There is a deal on the table that Hamas should accept that could do all the things I just laid out. Again, bring the hostages home, halt the fighting, increase humanitarian assistance, and that some of the outstanding issues that were present in recent weeks have been resolved or narrowed, and we will see what happens over the course of the coming days.
The flip side of that, CNN does have some reporting from someone familiar with these talks who says that the incentive for Israel right now, specifically Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, is Trump. Our reporting is that Netanyahu wants to get this done because of Trump, wants to curry favor with Donald Trump. How accurate is that assessment?
You know, to be honest, we're not focused on the politics of this. We are actually gratified by the fact that everybody who is speaking out on this topic is saying that they want a deal in the near term. Fundamentally, that's our position, and that's a good thing. We believe the sooner that this could happen, the better, first and foremost, because these hostages have been in a situation of just extreme peril now for well over a year.
Because you know how, like, in the first month, like in October, they were just like blind striking places? I just get, it's like been a fucking year of just like consistently lying about this being about the hostages. It's like wild frustrating that they can still just like.
You don't understand, Christian. The best way to save the hostages is by killing them.
Oh my God.
With American munitions and American targeting capabilities. That's perhaps the best way and only way to save these hostages.
Fucking.
And it's overdue for them to come home and be reunited with their families. It is overdue for the fighting in Gaza to be halted, and the people there who are facing just an egregious humanitarian situation to get more relief. This has been our position for quite some time, and we are not focused on exactly who or why this may be coming together. We just want to make sure.
I don't really predict that this would happen. I need to buy lotto tickets. I mean, I said it too. Come on now. This is like. This was going to, you can see it from a mile away. And you don't even need to look at, like, you don't need to see the future to be able to understand that this was happening. You just need to look at the past. Ronald Reagan did this. Richard Nixon also did this. It's the same exact principle. It's the same exact thing that unfolded time and time again. And I think that the obvious party that is, perhaps most responsible in this search, in this instance, is still very much the Democratic Party. Okay? Because Donald Trump is not singularly the greatest deal maker of all time, and that he was able to apply enough pressure to Benjamin Netanyahu. Okay? The very same levers of power were in the hands of the Biden administration and still is in the hands of the Biden administration. He could have simply just pulled Israel back at any point with something as simple as a phone call, and he refused to do so. That's it. This wasn't a conversation. This wasn't a conversation happening with a foreign adversary. Okay, this was a conversation happening with a state that relies on permanent American security assurances and weapons transfers to conduct its genocide.
Come together if we can bring that about.
Talk to us about the speech today from President Biden. What is the chief message?
Well, I think you'll hear the president say that through the work of this administration, the United States is now stronger at home than we were when he took office, stronger economically, a stronger industrial base, a greater lead over the rest of the world in the development of the sensitive technologies that will define the future of the global economy and of our national security. And that's because of the investments the president and, frankly, the Congress made early in this administration to strengthen our hand. Second, he will say that we inherited, in addition to a flagging economy, relationships around the world that were in tatters, and that we went about not only repairing those relationships, but enhancing them to historic levels, particularly in strategically consequential parts of the world like the Indo-Pacific and like Europe. And so when these crises came that get all of the attention in foreign affairs, obviously the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which was unconscionable, the Hamas.
Dude, we're talking about a genocide. If you keep asking me about clown girls and getting Christian to talk about clown girls, I'm going to permanently ban you. I'll ban you for a week, okay? But you're going to get permit if you keep it up.
Hamas attack on Israel is outrageous. The United States was able, with our partners and allies, to address those crises from a position of much greater strength. And as a result, our adversaries in those crises, the Russians and the Iranians first and foremost, are on the back foot and weaker than they were when this president took office. The Chinese, who the United States has declared as our key strategic competitor, people were saying that they were ascendant when President Biden took office, that they would surpass the U.S. economically, that they would outpace us technologically. Nobody's saying those things with the same degree of confidence anymore, if they're saying them at all, in part because of the performance of this administration led by the president. And so we believe that he is leaving a very strong hand, as you say, to our successors, a strong hand in Europe, a strong hand in the Indo-Pacific, a strong hand in the Middle East, and it will be up to them to take that work forward.
One of the things you mentioned was NATO, a stronger NATO.
Thank God. Thank God. He did AUKUS. He did NATO. He did NATO! He did it. He did it, Jack. Things are so much better overall. Meanwhile, you know, we're talking about a stronger NATO, and like virtually all of our European allies are in the throes of straightforward fascist mobilization, just like we did to ourselves, to be fair. You know, I'm glad that we did NATO so that the longstanding security commitments that America and its Western European allies especially have with one another can be directly given to a formerly nascent fascist mobilization. It's great. All of the might of empire in the hands of, you know, fascism. But to be fair, if you look at the history of NATO, that, you know, that is in line with why NATO was created and how NATO was how NATO continuously expanded anyway. So,
what are you hearing from your counterparts in Europe about how they feel the U.S. commitment will be to NATO in the months ahead?
Well, I'll let them speak for their own predictions, their own relationships. But I think one of the things that is undeniable is that when this administration took office, if you had asked analysts, experts on NATO, if there is a major security crisis in Europe, how well is the alliance likely to hold together? Will it end up more divided or strengthened and unified as a result of?
Another prediction I made, if you guys recall, was that I don't think Trump is going to undermine NATO. Okay? I don't think Trump is going to undermine NATO because NATO is not there to protect the world. NATO is there to have unlimited weapons contracts. Okay, NATO is there to serve the interests of the military-industrial complex, which is precisely the reason why I don't believe that Donald Trump is going to disrupt NATO or undermine NATO. Okay, it's far too valuable.
That crisis, I think you would have had predictions all over the map. So the fact that when the crisis came, when Russia invaded Ukraine, in an unprecedented way, which, by the way, we predicted and went around the world saying was going to happen, when NATO emerged not only larger because of the addition of Finland and Sweden, which gives an extra 1,000 miles to NATO's border with Russia that Russia has to worry about, but also stronger, with many more countries, almost 3 times as many countries spending at least 2% of their GDP on defense, and also more unified, despite this incredibly divisive.
But he's already undermined NATO. How has Donald Trump undermined NATO? By forcing our European partners to put more into NATO than they were previously, which was so undermining to NATO that Joe Biden continued that policy. Is that what you're saying? If it was such a dramatic change of pace that truly destroyed these security agreements that we had, this alliance that we had with NATO nations, why is it that Joe Biden continued that? Aggression against Denmark? Oh, you're saying Trump coming in like this second time will undermine NATO and is going to continue to undermine NATO. Yeah, I disagree. He said he wants to leave NATO. I don't care. Donald Trump has said, what Donald Trump says and what Donald Trump does is entirely different things. Okay, please stop focusing on what Donald Trump says and start focusing on what Donald Trump has done. And also, more importantly than that, what are the interests there? Okay, what kind of interest might Trump have?
Genuine question, Hasan. Do people deadass take, like in your chat, do people deadass take what Trump says as like a reasonable word?
No.
Okay.
Sure, but he's saying that that is undermining NATO. Yeah, no, I don't think that nobody cares about Greenland or Denmark. If he annexed Greenland and turned it into a larger military base than the one that actually exists, no one. Okay, I'm going to reiterate this position. No one actually. There are some dummies because I have a policy of letting anyone and everyone speak in the chat as long as they follow for 10 minutes. So there are, people that are not in this community in general coming in to just like talk shit. But overall, no, broadly, people don't take what he has to say seriously.
Action that Russia took. That came about because of hard work and frankly because of leadership by the president. So NATO is in a strong place. What the next administration does vis-a-vis its NATO policy, I'm not going to predict. How the other countries are viewing the incoming administration, best left to them. But the hand that is being dealt to the new administration puts them in a position to press the advantage should they choose to.
Greenland is 88% Inuit people. The U.S. is not going to end up messing with Greenland. Inuit do not want to be U.S. citizens. If you think that the yeah.
Oh, America would never do that. Yeah, you're right, dude. I've never heard of
America notoriously cares and is very considerate to the interests of an indigenous population.
Every indigenous person I know says that. They love this place, dude.
Yeah. It's like kind of famous that, Thanksgiving? Like that is actually a celebration of the indigenous population and their interests and how much we love them, So yeah. Plus it doesn't matter. They can just like manufacture consent. They've already started. Every single thing that I told you is going to happen with respect to Greenland has already started happening. There's a Patriot polling firm that showed that 57% of Greenlanders want America to take over Greenland.
Patriot polling?
Yeah, Patriot polling came out with a poll. The funny part about it is that I guess the Republicans are not as like tactful as the Democrats are. Like the Democrats care about the aesthetics of the situation, so they'll do a more competent. They'll manufacture consent or try to manufacture consent to the best of their ability. Republicans kind of just give up on that front entirely. They'll just like they'll pay a bunch of homeless people like Donald Trump Jr. did in Greenland. They'll fly into Greenland. They'll pay a bunch of random homeless people to wear MAGA hats and then turn around and go, look, they love us here. They'll go to a silly ass polling group like Patriot Polling and be like, here, give us a poll. Give us some numbers about how many Greenlanders actually want America to annex Greenland. Like they're not even, they don't even try hard enough. At least America, under Democratic leadership, the Democratic Party tries to, use NGOs and numerous other parts of the State Department's expansive apparatus to try to craft an elaborate ruse, try to craft an elaborate reason as to why America must intervene in whatever nation we have interests in. Republicans don't do that. They're just like, yeah, nah, fuck it. What are you going to do about it? Look at our dick.
Well, it's like a whole thing where like specifically the repetition of information makes people think it's true. So it doesn't matter if it's like true or not. If people see it enough times, it like registers in the back of your brain like, oh, maybe I don't know this, but maybe it is actually a little true that people like Greenland wants us. I saw it like 5 times.
Yeah, no, that's how it works. Yeah. Oh, by the way, this was really funny for all the people that say like, oh, Donald Trump would never actually accelerate American foreign policy in the same way that Joe Biden did. Hey, here's your Donald Trump is going to dismantle NATO chatters. Donald Trump to urge Zelensky to lower Ukraine's conscription age to 18.
Shout out, send the kids to war. The kids crave war. It's a W in the chat for war.
And this is, once again, probably the most reputable paper on American foreign policy. Financial Times has so consistently been one of the best American-based outlets or Western-based outlets on what is going on in Israel as well. Yeah, Mr. I'm gonna end the Ukraine stuff in a day. Hold on. Where is do we have can you send me the 12 feet IO like pay can someone send me a link to pass the paywall on this article? Because I want to look at more of this article. Do you like The Atlantic? No. Isn't it 12FT or whatever? .io. Just get the extension. Okay, I'm not gonna do that right now, man. Thank you for sending me the archive link, chatter. Thank you, Hex in a Box. Wait, what? This is a totally different article you sent me. Trump risks turning the U.S. into a rogue state. Unless this is the article, but it has a different title. No, it was the wrong article. Okay, this is the right article. All right. Trump to urge Zelensky to lower Ukraine's conscription age to 18. Incoming U.S. president plans to speak with Russia's Vladimir Putin within weeks, says new national security advisor. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump intends to push Ukraine to lower its age of conscription in an effort to stabilize the country's front lines ahead of direct negotiations with Russia. Speaking to U.S. network ABC News on Sunday, Mike Waltz, Trump's national security pick, gave the clearest picture yet of the new administration's plan to end the war. Waltz said that its first steps would be to open dialogue with Russia's President Vladimir Putin, to whom the U.S. has not spoken directly since the war began, and to ask Kyiv to mobilize more men in order to stabilize Ukraine's front lines ahead of the negotiations. If Ukrainians have asked the whole world to be all in for democracy, we need them to be all in for democracy, said. That's amazing.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
You got a big old thumb ball on Philly D today? Oh, hell yeah. We'll watch that in a second. Yeah, more blood for the blood god. Where is it? Oh, here it is. And they certainly have fought bravely, and they certainly have taken a very noble and tough stand, but we need to see those manpower shortages addressed. He added, this isn't just about munitions, ammunition, or writing more checks. It's about seeing the front line stabilized so that we can enter into some type of deal. Walt said preparations were underway for a Trump-Putin call, adding he expected it to take place over the coming weeks or days. Russian state television said on Sunday Putin would have important international contacts this week, without specifying with whom. It is unclear how the Waltz comments will sit with the Zelensky government as they put the onus on Ukraine to sacrifice more, and with no promises of additional aid. Ukraine's conscription age was lowered from 27 to 25 in April, but the average age of a Ukrainian soldier is 43. Lowering the age is politically unpopular, and Ukraine has said it wants to protect its future generations. In recent months, Ukraine's age for enlistment has been a source of tension between Washington and Kyiv. The ongoing administration of Joe Biden has publicly called on Kyiv to lower it further, while Ukraine has said it lacks enough weapons to arm the men they have already mobilized. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said in early December that the U.S. would be prepared to train and arm more Ukrainian soldiers if Kyiv lowered the conscription age. In response to Miller's comments, Zelensky wrote on X that the Ukraine must not compensate the lack of equipment and training with the youth of soldiers. In late December, when speaking to reporters in Brussels, Zelensky pointed again to the need for the West to send more weapons. Please tell me, if a person is standing in front of you without a weapon, what difference does it make if that person is 20 years old or 30? There is no difference, said Zelensky. For the record, there is truth to the fact that Ukraine simply lacks manpower. That's true. Okay? That's it. That's true. Please tell me if a person is standing in front of you. In September, Zelensky told CNN that Ukraine had 10 mobilized brigades, roughly 30,000 men, that they were unable to equip and use for battle because of weapon shortages. Despite the U.S. allocating tens of billions of dollars worth of weapons to Ukraine in April, the country has constantly complained that the arms are arriving in dribs and drabs. In August, Ukraine's finance ministry had to use money allocated for soldier salaries to buy more weapons. Yeah.
This is only tangentially related, but something that I think people super underrate about like why Trump relates with people so hard is 'cause people don't understand how much Americans don't want to give money to other places.
Yeah.
And he'll regularly speak in the language of like this whole like, oh, like lower the age to 18 is like, we have to stop giving them money. And that's the thing, like even with Trump's position on Israel, people think that he's going to stop giving them money. And like, that's what matters. Cause like what Republicans don't care about Palestine, but they do care about like the idea of us not giving people money.
Yeah, Republican voters, depending on what kind of Republican voters they are, either have an endless loyalty and commitment to the nation state of Israel, far beyond what any American Jew you might suspect is loyal to the state of Israel, because you have the evangelical Christians in the base of support for the party that are the most rabid supporters of Israel.
Like the most money, right? Like essentially like the biggest donors.
Yeah. But outside of that, yeah, the average Republicans, like no Republican living in freaking Louisiana that's not like constantly going to an evangelical mega church is going, that's right, I really do hope that Donald Trump gives more money. I really hope that Donald Trump gives more money to Israel. Like that's not a real point of concern. Americans love to fancy themselves as peaceful doves, that they want to feel like America's violence and America's military actions around the world are just like an unfortunate but necessary military intervention. They don't want to think of it like this brutal affair of empire that consistently seeks out new targets in an effort to secure the extraction of natural resources and labor power that's consistently undermined. Like they don't want to think about it. They don't want to think about the process of how they get their, $5 jalapeno poppers. They want to.
I mean, you gotta give the people don't crave democracy. You gotta force democracy on them, and then they'll know they like it. And that's the general Middle East policy.
Yeah. Half of a 3,000 man regiment escaped the Ukrainian military before getting on the front line. Worse news that 500,000 Ukrainian men are hiding from the draft. I mean, it totally makes sense. Over 500,000 Ukrainians are on the wanted list for draft dodging, according to a Ukrainian army spokeswoman, Natalia Kindrativ. Well, yeah, I mean,
I'd dodge a draft. Shout out to that.
Yeah, I get it. Guys, I think this war is wrong. Sent April 30th, 1945. A growing number of Israeli soldiers are speaking out against Israel-Hamas war. They said they did or saw things that crossed ethical lines. Some 200 soldiers have signed a letter saying they'll stop fighting if the government doesn't secure a ceasefire. Interesting that it's happening right now.
I'm at an event in Tel Aviv that is being put on by soldiers who say that they...
Dude, it's crazy that American media is so fast when it comes to covering stuff like this.
Yeah.
And yet it takes them sometimes a year to unearth these truths that nobody could have foreseen, like the lavender targeting system that local call and Plus 972 magazine reported on literally a year ago. That was first reported in Western media in New York Times as an afterthought literally 2 weeks ago. Okay? And they still didn't cover the full scope of the program. I don't even think they mentioned Where's Daddy, which is the extra evil side of the already evil AI targeting system. Always remember when you got, I mean, it's interesting. Why is the Associated Press reporter at this like random gathering talking about how the IDF must remain a sympathetic force, actually?
They are refusing to continue to fight in Gaza. The soldiers said that they do not agree with the way that this war is being fought. Some of them have been inside of Gaza, say that they don't agree with what they had to do or what they saw.
Soldiers in the field have a lot of freedom of act. They can do pretty much whatever they want and they won't be accountable.
As a therapist, I see the suffering of both sides, and especially the suffering of Israelis, soldiers.
That's a crazy sentence, but
dude, yeah.
That's a wild sentence. I'm not,
dude, you don't understand. The genocide that these guys were conducting was so traumatic for them.
Dude, who was it? The New York Times that posted that article that was like, I had to go through. I was in my tank, and it was
CNN.
so much.
I think it was CNN.
And
Yeah,
it was like it was so much blood, and I thought to myself, this is bad.
The bulldozer guy that killed himself, and his bestie that talked about how he couldn't eat meat any longer because like it reminded him of the child skulls that he had crushed with his bulldozer. Yeah, it's great. We're at the shoot and cry stage of the genocide denial, and the genocide hasn't ended yet.
Why would they include that? I find it like, hold on, let me give me a second before I start saying. I feel like being like, hey guys, I can't even eat meat no more, dude. I can't even enjoy a sandwich like that. It's a crazy thing to say.
He got out of Gaza, but Gaza did not get out of him. Israeli soldiers returning from war struggled with trauma and suicide. Yeah.
But it's like from killing people.
Yeah, no, from killing them in the most barbaric ways possible, killing civilians in the most barbaric fashion. You know, oh man. I have a suggestion for all of these people that could save themselves from the trouble of getting crippling PTSD. It's called Don't Fucking Do a Genocide, okay? It's super easy. It's called Don't Do It. Don't murder children. Don't blow up entire city blocks. And then post it on TikTok, which is ironically now the modus operandi of the IDF as well. Only a year, almost a year and a half after they started conducting their genocidal affairs, did the Israeli government turn around and say, hey, you guys probably should stop posting this stuff on Instagram. It's making us look really bad. They're making the shittiest techno you've ever heard of as we speak right now. Oh, God, I know.
Making the shittiest techno?
It's a meme. Israelis love the worst, like electro, psy, whatever, mushroom music. I don't even, psytrance.
Okay.
Oh, my God. Just, oof.
That's that 3-day weekend finance music. Burning Man shit.
Yeah. Oh. Channel 12 reporting Bree families gathered tonight to protest against the deal that includes a ceasefire. During the event, they received the news of the fall of the 5 Nahal fighters and stood for a minute of silence in their memory.
5?
Oh my Lord, dude. Dude, these settlers are so fucking psychotic, dude. Jesus Christ. This has got to be a settler group.
That's wild.
It's just like, and it never actually attracts in their minds as to why more people are dying. You know what I mean? More of their soldiers or their brave soldiers are dying, waiting to have their semen extracted by the goon platoon. I wonder why. It's because Netanyahu is not doing a ceasefire. Yeah, the woman on the far left is why I said it's got to be a settler group. She's one of the most rabid ones. A particularly psychotic individual. Been watching since before I got my IDF draft letter. Luckily, I could get out of the draft because my mandatory service would have been during this phase of the genocide. Thanks for your coverage. Hey, man, thanks for saving your ass and also not participating in this, you know?
Shout out to that.
There's a lot of HasanAbi heads in Israel that have, dodged the draft, and some of them even went to prison for it. I've interviewed some of them.
Dude, in like the October, November months of like 2023, when people were talking about like draft dodging, like, well, they'll go to jail. And it's like, dude, I feel like jail on your conscience, not that bad.
Yeah.
Like comparatively to like genocide. I don't know why that was like brought up ever. Shout out to you.
No, I think it still requires, it's not a simple feat. It still requires bravery. You really want congrats for not participating in genocide, bro? Man, shut up. You don't understand the social conditioning that takes place when you grow up in a fascist apartheid state. You just don't understand it. Look, I'm Turkish. I grew up in Turkey. I in that regard, I have a lot of praise for the people that see all of that and withstand all that social conditioning, withstand all that dehumanization of the Palestinians, and still can recognize right from wrong. You don't understand it until, we talk about something that America's interested in. Many chatters that will turn around and be anti-Israel and even shit on Israeli citizens who refuse to participate in this genocide will literally never bat an eye at like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, or never bat an eye at I don't know, any number of different things that America has engaged in all around the world, Yeah,
it's one of those things where like people don't quite understand the amount of propaganda they're under. And like I in high school, most definitely, like when you hit like World War II, it's like this was the thing that would have stopped more deaths. And it's like, no, like that's a part of it. Like that's the layer that you're not seeing. And it's like the amount of propaganda that Israeli citizens are living under. It is impressive when people dip. Shout out to you.
Chatters be like, oh, dude, you recognize that your apartheid state was conducting a genocide and refused to take action, or took action in the appropriate direction. That's really brave of you. Also, we should bomb Beijing tomorrow. It's like, yeah, you're under that same spell of social conditioning. It's just directed towards whatever the American media machine has told you to hate. Okay. First door on the left. Yeah, it's like shitting on Muhammad Ali for not participating in the Vietnam War. Exactly. Boo-hoo, Muhammad Ali. Imagine bravely putting yourself out there as a person who refused to partake in American imperialism. Guess what, dude? That's the bare minimum, dude. For context, the picture is of the Minority Freedom Forum of the far-right bereaved and hostage families who support Netanyahu. On the left is Orit Struk, MK settler leader, Minister of Settlements, and certified fucking psycho. Conscientious objector is the name, not conscious objector. Being a draft dodger in Israel is like being a Republican in America. We're all ostracized from society and are under attack for our moral bravery. Republicans are under attack. It's like being a Christian. I would say it's like being a Christian in America. A white Christian man attacked for existing, for doing the right thing. This is a joke, chatters. He is joking, okay? He's being sarcastic. The most oppressed class. Bro thought jokes could fly. Christian looked incredibly confused when you mentioned Goon Platoon. Wait, Christian! Wait, he's pissing. I'll wait for him to get here. It's not just jail. You lose your family, friends, job opportunities. To clarify, I would have chosen jail over participating in the genocide, but I had enough disabilities and enough time living in the U.S. to get out of it legally. Yeah. No, I know. You, dude, even if you're not eligible for the military, or even if you do serve in the IDF and go through your mandatory conscription and then realize it was incredibly fucked up and join like I don't know, Breaking the Silence or whatever.
Yo, shout out to Breaking the Silence.
You're still endlessly ostracized by the rest of Israeli society, especially considering, and we look at the data readily available on this stuff, that like 75% of your peers at any given moment are like permanently supercharged on their genocidal ambition, and you're the one guy in every group that they look at and go, oh, this guy's a leftist freak. Israeli society is so reactionary that like socialist or leftist is utilized as a smear, okay? Even in America, the leading nation for the Red Scare, at least like when you say you're a leftist, people don't automatically assume it's a pejorative. Socialist, they do, but...
Yeah. Something interesting is like back in 2022, I was at like the JCC, which is like the Jewish Community Center in Manhattan. They were showing, they have this film festival called The Other Israel, and it's towards like a lot of like alt communities, sort of like protest communities. And they showed this film called Protest, which was about like different people in the States who had protested like about Palestine, and they got like their newspaper taken down or like gotten like fired from their jobs and stuff. And like the conversation that was had afterwards by like the Jewish folks who were there, who were like, okay, like in one of the shots, there's a protest sign that says Zionism is racism, right? And like people they were like, okay, I support this film, I support this message. I could not show this to a family member without them like going off on me. It's like, how do I take this message to the people back in Israel? How do I take this message back to people? And it's like the amount of like pressure is like wildly overwhelming. The tone is different.
Yeah, you looked. Chatters were saying you were confused when I said Goon Platoon. Are you familiar with the IDF semen extraction squads?
No, I'm not.
Oh,
what the fuck is the Goon Platoon?
Oh.
No idea.
She thinks it's just another rocket attack, but
I just want to give you some clarification on what this is. This was not a meme. This is released by the Israeli government's own YouTube channel.
Okay.
Gripping fear prickles through Shiley's entire body, and it's outside their bedroom window. Her husband, Yahav, fights the danger as Shiley runs, leaving everything behind to protect their baby, Shaya. She hides from the terrorists hunting her for 27 hours, terrified, praying that the love of her life will survive. She clings to hope that she won't need to raise their newborn alone. 4 days later, her heart shatters. She hugs Shaya tightly and knows
where I think it's going?
She must fulfill Yahav's dream to create.
What? She must fulfill Yahav's dream to create more life.
Play it.
More life. So, Shiley puts out a call for the unthinkable to retrieve his seed and be able.
Shiley Atari, I have 2 hours to get my husband's sperm sample after he sacrificed his life. Who can help? What? Why are you? It looks like you're confused. This is a pretty normal thing and not weirdly eugenicist at all, I think.
Finish it.
Able to continue growing their family. She's in her own war against time, and the crowd leaps into action to
until the sperm is no longer viable.
Complete her desperate mission. But it's too late. Shiley did everything she could to save her family. We still have time to save ours.
So when someone first approached me with this, I was like, you're being anti-Semitic, right? Like you're just making this up. Like there's no way that like IDF soldiers have like a dead man switch where they just send in an extraction team and milk a dead IDF soldier. And it turns out, no, there is one actually. Here's the BBC reporting on it. The Israelis who want grandchildren from their dead son's sperm. Increasing numbers of bereaved parents in Israel are asking for sperm from the bodies of their sons, many of them soldiers, to be extracted and frozen. Some rules on the procedure have been relaxed in the wake of the October 7 attacks, but families are angry and frustrated about the lengthy legal processes they face.
Dude, what? What? Okay, all right, look. Sorry, give me a second. This is you want an ethno state that bad? That bad?
You don't understand. The process involves making an incision in the testicle and removing a small piece of the tissue from which live sperm cells can be isolated in a lab and frozen. So they go in when an Israeli occupying force soldier bravely perishes because they wanted to smoke a cigarette in broad daylight in the Gaza Strip, which creates a unique opportunity for someone with a bathtub sniper rifle that they created to snipe them. Okay. Then the rest of the squad get together and they're like, call in the goon platoon. And the goon platoon comes in and they cut a piece of his testicle and extract the semen that way. Success rates for retrieving the cells are highest if it's done within 24 hours of death, though they can live up to 72 hours. In October, the Israeli Health Ministry waived the requirement for parents to obtain a court order to request the procedure. The IDF says it's become more proactive in offering it to bereaved parents in recent years. But while it has become easier to have sperm frozen, widows or parents who want to use it in the conception of a child have to demonstrate in court that the dead man wanted to have children. The process can take years, particularly for bereaved parents.
There shouldn't be a legal process for this.
I think they should just make the soldiers nut if they really want, like, that's the thing I don't understand. Like, before deployment, just deploy your semen into a cup. I feel like that would be a significantly easier, not to give techniques to the apartheid state on how to do more settler colonialism, but there's gotta be a better process here. And I truly don't understand why they're just like doing post-mortem semen extraction.
This is nuts.
Just tactically ascertain a cum jar and nut into it in a kinetic situation before deploying into your genocide battle. I don't get it.
That makes so much more sense. Like, even if what?
They're worried that the guys are going to get post-nut clarity and not want to go kill children. They're like, you can't nut before you go into war because then you're not tactical enough.
Goon platoon, dude. What?
IDF will offer soldiers the option of harvesting their sperm in case of death. This was decided by the Knesset Health Committee on Monday in preparation for the law of using. Once again, I am asking, why are they just not nutting into cups before they go into battle? I don't understand. The IDF's like, oh, the best possible way to do this is if you die, and then we just, we'll check your records to see if you said yes to having your balls cut off from your dead body.
Okay, problematic thing I'm about to say. This is the most Dune-esque shit I've ever heard in my life.
That's not problematic. What do you mean? It literally is. This is like,
what?
This is only an affair. This is an affair that only becomes a problem worthy of like people writing about it in a country that is unhealthily obsessed with the notion of maintaining your bloodline and lineage to ensure that you can outpopulate the Palestinians that you are actively killing. I don't, Yeah, I thought they used a cattle prod on the prostate postmortem to harvest, but I don't know if they do that.
Why are all... See, I keep expecting all of these articles to be like either not even satirical, but maybe even like being like, hey, this is like we just found this out. These are just articles about it. Like,
no, they're
this
like
is just like, hey,
actively...
hey, dude, just in case you die, like, we got your nut, bro. Like, we're not gonna let that go to waste. What?
It's because our health minister from Shas and those guys don't learn fucking addition or science, let alone medicine. Oh, that's sick. Wait, that's one of the dudes that's just like women shouldn't learn how to read? Is that what you're talking about? I don't know. I don't know enough about the Shah's party. Oh, he's Haredi. Okay. And then people get mad at me when I say stuff like, yeah, there are active parties in Israel that are like, no, women shouldn't learn how to read and men shouldn't either unless they're reading the Torah. Duh. Like that is a lot of political polarization in Israel.
No, that makes
on issues that matter. Of course, on genocide, everyone's like, no, it's great. with the exception of like the Arab parties, I guess.
What is this article?
It's because that way the state doesn't have to ask the soldiers to submit their sperm. It just still doesn't make sense.
No, it's the hardest way to do something and like the craziest way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that they played wait, oh, this is an actual YouTube ad they played right after October 7th. I kept getting it back on my phone. There was a second one which even showed graphic content as a YouTube ad. Yeah. Anyway, it's just one of the many different insane things. Shah's is a Haredi party that doesn't allow women to run, though ironically, Haredi women are way more educated because only the men stay at home to study the Torah 24/7. They need to put a see, they need to do less DEI in the Shah's party. All the women that are learning to read and write, this is unacceptable. It's presenting a problem. You are erasing the 10 Hadash voters who are all in this chat. I mean, aren't they also considered an Arab party by definition because they're a socialist anti-occupation party? They consider them to also be an Arab party as well. That's why I said Arab parties in the Knesset. Yeah. Anyway, let's go back to the Israeli soldiers that no longer want to do genocide.
Soldiers and civilians that experiencing trauma after trauma after trauma with no end near.
Some people say that there were too many strikes on too many innocent civilians. Now, while some people say that this is just a drop in the bucket and that this movement is fairly insignificant, the soldiers say that they're hoping this movement is going to put pressure on the government to have a ceasefire. I'm at an event in
I just think that the timing of this and the coverage of the timing of this is like awfully convenient. You know what I mean? You know, not to be super cynical here. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who are horrified by all of the violence that they saw. They were victims of social conditioning and played a role in the continuation of this genocide. But I do feel weird about like it. The timing of the Associated Press, Tel Aviv bureau chief going in and covering this immediately to be like, no, you don't understand. The IDF is not like this. They're really sad about the, you know.
It's because these organizations have existed for years. They've existed like, maybe not this specific one, but there's been like, at least like IDF veteran organizations that are like, this is bad, genocide bad, like apartheid bad for decades. It's not like a new phenomenon to cover it now.
Yeah.
Around the same time as the reported breakthrough in ceasefire talks in Qatar, an Israeli airstrike hit a school in Gaza City, sheltering displaced Palestinians. Survivors said as many as 8 people, 6 of them children from the same family, were killed. Each day of progress on a ceasefire remains another day of continued misery in Gaza.
We are fed up. We want a truce. Enough tricking us and telling us every day, tomorrow or the day after. It's been a year and a half that we've been getting by. It's been a year and a half that we've been fighting for our lives. How long must we continue like this?
Today's messaging, though, from both sides did seem different, still qualified, but less so than what's come before.
Progress was made. We see some progress in the negotiations. Israel wants a hostage deal. Israel is working with our American friends.
I will never forget that there were mass protests that took place in Israel. Okay, people just like stood on the streets, hostage families, when it came a little bit after like the initial July 2nd ceasefire agreement. And then I believe there was, what was it? I think like Israel ended up killing some hostages or something in an operation. And people protested in the streets saying like, you are the reason. You like Benjamin Netanyahu and this administration is responsible for our family members and our friends not coming home. And I remember American journalists sitting in front of those protests, watching these guys get water sprayed, okay? Watching these guys get hit with a water cannon and being bludgeoned and going, these guys are serving the interests of Hamas by participating in this protest.
Jesus
and I was
Christ.
like, bro, you're not like, the thing that I don't understand is like, you're not like a Likudnik. You're not a Bibist. You're not a Benjamin Netanyahu fan. You're not Israeli. Like, why are you saying this? You're an American newscaster and you're sitting in front of like this mass mobilization of Israeli voters protesting against their own government, openly recognizing who's at fault. And these dudes, and as an American, you're just there being like, and you know what? These guys are unironically serving the interests of Hamas by trying to put an end to this just war. It's crazy.
Oh, dude, every time that I forget that Israel calls itself the most moral army in the world, I fucking lose it.
I never forget that because I always think that. I'm always thinking it's the most moral army. Only democracy in the Middle East.
I remember, I can't, this was like pre-October 7th that I was getting comments of people being like, you don't understand, Christian, like the IDF kills 99% terrorists. And I was like, wow, that was most, like, I
was like,
and this
damn.
is coming from like Americans. And so I'm like,
man, they're so good.
Yeah.
It's just it's so strange that, you know, everyone else is always lying. They're always like Israel always is the party that is trying to get out of this in the most moral ways possible. It's crazy. It's crazy. Shocking, really. It's like they use Palestinian Health Ministry numbers and then they just turn around and say, oh, everyone that was killed, baby or not, is a terrorist.
In order to achieve a hostage deal, and soon we will know whether the other side wants the same thing.
On that question, Arabic language news sites are reporting that Hamas has no issues with the text as presented. Israeli government sources quoted as saying no official Hamas response has yet been delivered.
If you missed it, the dude on screen is Gideon Zahar, who was in the opposition a few months ago and joined the government to get the foreign minister position after Katz got the defense ministry. Remember, Golan is unemployed now. A few days ago, right-leaning Knesset minister from Yesh Atid broke off from Lapid to start his own party, more sympathetic to Likud. Lovely opposition. No, the Israeli opposition is such a joke. It's so funny. I will never forget. What's the centrist guy with the good hair coming out and saying that the International Criminal Court was corrupt and anti-Semitic? Oh yeah, Yair Lapid. It was Yair Lapid, right? No, it wasn't. It is Lapid. You're right. Yair Lapid initially coming out and being like, one, we have to pummel Lebanon further, and two, the International Criminal Court is an anti-Semitic institution.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's the opposition. That's the opposition in Israel to Benjamin Netanyahu.
It would be the first such agreement since the week-long truce in November 20.
I will never forget this guy, followed by what's his name? No, I said I will never forget what he said.
2023. As reported, the deal follows the broad contours of what's been on the table for months. A first phase in which female, sick and elderly hostages are exchanged for Palestinian prisoners. A second phase in which the rest of the hostages and hundreds more prisoners are released, along with a major withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Strip. This new momentum coming in the days before the inauguration of Donald Trump.
Like,
if those hostages aren't back, I don't.
This is my favorite new guy, by the way. Okay, what do you think? What do you think his background is? So this is the Middle East envoy.
This is a Middle East envoy appointed by Trump.
Yeah, like he's the one who he's like Trump in the room. Basically, he is supposed to be representing Trump's interests.
Dude, I'm saying he owned a mattress king.
No, real estate developer.
Real estate developer? Okay, that makes sense.
Real estate developer who golfs at Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump literally was like, what are you? You Jewish, right? You understand business. Go deal with your people. He literally, which is, of course, once again, going back to the same thing that I mentioned before with like the aesthetics, right? Like Trump doesn't give a shit about anything. He's just like, yeah, whatever, go deal with them. Okay. They're going to stop when I tell them to anyway. I already talked to Netanyahu. But with Biden, who's Biden's envoy? Amos Hochstein. And what's the other guy's name? Brett McGurk or whatever. Like Amos is literally an IDF guy. Like he served in the IDF. Like how can you sit there and be like, no, this guy is definitely going to manage this conflict with the with the importance that it deserves. He's going to be very peaceful about it. When there's reporting coming out of the administration where apparently they were openly saying like, no, go bomb Lebanon. It's great. We're giving you the go ahead. It's crazy.
I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East.
The man on the right, Steve Witkoff, will be Trump's Middle East envoy. He's already been central to these talks, a rare instance of cooperation between the outgoing and incoming US administrations. For Israel's Prime Minister, there are risks to his coalition government. His far-right Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich today calling the emerging deal catastrophic. But he himself was assailed by hostage families during a committee meeting on compensation for victims of Hamas's October the 7th attacks.
I got old Coca-Cola that I haven't drank since the BDS.
Where is your shame? You murdered our girl, and you sit here and calculate prices? Where is your shame?
Today, Israel's military confirmed 5 soldiers had been killed in combat in Gaza's north. For months, the army has been briefing about the diminishing returns of continuing the war.
Surprisingly good.
A war which Gaza's civil defense agency says killed more than 50 Palestinians today. If there is to be a ceasefire within days, each one of those days will contain more scenes like this.
Okay, so now we get to another thing that I've been meaning to watch. Oh yeah, Qassam Brigades also reported that they killed over 10 Israeli occupying force troops in North Gaza within 72 hours. So there's that as well. 212 to 226 and 542 to 557 FTOS. Thank you. I'll point to a couple things about this footage that they have apparently had that they did not deploy. Okay. This coverage was readily available for the past 8 months. I mean, it's much longer than that. Obviously, you could have just like done this kind of coverage probably a month into Israel's beginning stages of the genocide. Having said that, they suspiciously held back until the last 7 days of the Biden administration. Okay.
In a study published late this past week.
Is this the Aisha Siddiqui, by the way? Friend of the show, Aisha Siddiqui? Or is it a different Aisha Siddiqui? Let's see. Let's look at. I mean, she hasn't posted anything about the 60 Minutes thing, so maybe it's a different Aisha Siddiqui, probably the same name.
The medical
last detail of like calling it a war is like a part of the huge sort of like
saying that it's a war, saying it's a Israel versus Hamas, or it's a war against Hamas, which is already like a preordained terrorist group according to the United States State Department to begin with. All of this plays a role in manufacturing consent.
It's just wild to watch, because even this is like in this thing meant to be scathing in the way they report it itself. The surrounding details still sort of make it seem as if like it's like, oh, this has to happen, or was only happening for one reason, and there were some bad actions happening within it, but the system itself is fine. Like just something wrong happened. Like,
small note, but the behind the children sitting on the rubble earlier in the video in Hebrew was written, "We'll return here one day. Don't let anyone tell you the settlers are fringe radicals with no influence. They're just the tip of the spear." Yeah, of course.
For October 7th, President Biden became the first U.S.
like settlers.
Yes, many American liberals are. Many American liberals, due to liberal Zionism, have this attitude that like settlers are a totally separate entity of radicals that operate on their own, and that you know, they're unique, they're different, they're you know, they have their own ambitions, but the government is always trying to keep them at bay. They're always trying to check them. And depending on like what level of liberal Zionism you're operating on, some will say Benjamin Netanyahu was forced into a coalition with them, and that's the reason why he's like getting bullied by them or whatever. But ultimately, I mean, there's some truth to that, obviously. Like, he did have to rebuild a governing coalition with Itamar Ben-Gvir and the likes of Smotrich, both of which are rabid settlers. But having said that, it is obvious that many in polite society in Israel have a tremendous appetite for this death and destruction. It's just true. You know? Like, they do. They at most they think like, yeah, settlers are rabid, and they are. They really are. They're radical, they're rabid, they're far right. But ultimately they see what Israel is doing in Gaza as not a genocide, and that is actually anti-Semitic to even call it a genocide. And why are you focusing on the only Jewish nation on the planet? And that you know, that ultimately the IDF is a secular institution that is a force for good, and that everything that they're doing is actually reasonable security, addressing the real security concerns that Israelis have. That's like, I think, the broadest, albeit still somewhat reductive attitude, but my water, yeah, that's true. The IDF is, of course, not a secular institution, for the record, nor is it a progressive one. It is a genocidal fascist institution doing genocide. And also, famously, the IDF has actually criminally prosecuted its own soldiers with more severe penalties for fucking serving hot dogs, cooking hot dogs on Saturday, than they have for assassinating children. That is 100% a fact, by the way. You might ask, why would they do that? I mean, Hebrew national, hot dogs are kosher. Well, guess what? It's not kosher if a Jewish person is cooking it up on a Saturday. Yeah. The IDF has given more severe criminal penalties to its soldiers for violating kosher on Saturday than they have at this stage for raping Palestinian detainees to death in the Side Teiman concentration camp. Yeah. IDF soldiers sentenced to 20 days in prison for making hot dogs on Shabbat. The pair were caught by a third soldier who entered the kitchen and saw them committing the act.
That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. All beef hot dogs exist? No, I'm saying it's not because of pork. It's because if you're Jewish, you can't serve other people, like you can't cook food and serve other people the food that you cooked as a Jew on Shabbat. Okay, yes, Saturday glizzies are a crime. It needs to be a Shabbos goy that makes it. Yeah, in comparison to the rapist, the main rapist from the Side Teiman Israeli prison camp is now becoming a regular TV show and guest in Israel. Inconceivable how the society can be accepted and exist in modern age. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this guy. But part of it's, just the function of the IDF is to kill children. So.
Yeah.
Military assistance to Israel since the war began, largely in the...
Seems like a lot of focus on Israel needed, but there are a lot of people focusing on the one thing. Lots of other shit's happening in the Middle East and Levant. Obviously not entirely divorced of the actions of Israel, but please bring more light than just Israel. I mean, I cover virtually everything that happens in the region. It's so funny that like the one time I'm talking about Israel after basically a month of not talking about Israel, you come in here and you're like, can you please cover something else? Tuning in from Langley. Hey guys, seems to me like you're talking about Israel, the real Lord of War. Make no mistake. Like his job was literally to give weapons to America's allies. Okay. Like understand that this dude, he is the real, like if you think, what's the Russian guy that re-released? Like if you think that that guy is like a, you know, a real villain, like this dude, yeah, Victor Boot wishes he was the Merchant of Death, like this guy actually is. This dude was the gun devil. Yes. Okay. The real fucking Victor Boot, the OG. I mean, Victor Boot's greatest crime was also competing against the CIA, so that's the reason why they arrested him. But he operated for a very long time until he, you know, started entering the CIA territory, the CIA marketplace, and then they packed him up real quick. We won that trade. Brittany won a ring. How many rings Victor got?
Dude, shout out to Brittany. Like, yeah, no, that's a baller. I just want to say real quick, good trade.
Yeah. Yeah, how many weapons has Victor Boot sold since then? You know what I mean? But in any case, this guy, in the aftermath of October 7th, was like, yeah, that's the bridge too far for me.
I was talking to Jamel Bowie back in like February of 2023. And at that point, that's what, like October, November, December, 5 months into the genocide. And we were like, a week. Like this, like a weekend should have been handled. And no, like you wouldn't reach the point where you have to be so deep in propaganda and so deep into like a Zionist idea that every action they're taking is just for this to even seem remotely justifiable. It's like the most, I think we were just talking at that time about like how we couldn't like find a single rationality to like Biden's continued support at that point. Like there's this like no digging out of that hole. I don't know.
Yeah, no, he is a rabid Zionist personally, but I think it's just like there's always going to be two different mindsets or multiple different attitudes inside of the State Department, especially as it pertains to Israel. Like, some people will be the first to tell you that like there are members in the CIA that fucking hate Israel, for the likes of what's his name, Jonathan Pollard. Like there are like Israel routinely conducts espionage against American assets. So there are people who definitely hate Israel within the American State Department as well. What I noticed in the aftermath of October 7 was that many within the State Department were of two different minds. There was the let Israel pummel Gaza into the ground coalition that ended up winning out. Okay. Obviously. And then there were the people who were like, in order for America to maintain its soft power,
yeah,
and in order for America to maintain stability in the region, we have to restrain Israel. The people that quit did not quit because they were peaceful doves.
No.
They quit because they understood that like what Israel was doing was going to have genuine negative consequences for America on the global stage and for Israel on the global stage if left unrestrained. There were people who wanted to save Israel from itself, from its worst tendencies.
It's sort of like me, shout out my homie Kedrick. Me and my homie Ked always talk about this, how like this isn't even like good American imperialism. Like full, like from the face of being someone who's like a hardcore American imperialist, this is like not the best operation for it, and Israel isn't good at doing it in that way. And it's like it's always been a doomed plan from the beginning to give them this like unilateral support without question.
Yeah. To hear this.
Yo.
What? No.
It like hurts my brain because I think that like a part of becoming an adult is realizing that like people who hold positions like this are also like fucking stupid. Where it's like you think that like anyone in that high of a position would have the intelligence to be like, oh yeah, these dudes have been in power for like the past 30-ish years. we know how they operate. We know what their MO is. Like, this is going to fuck us over equally if we do this. And it's like, no, like they're like, they'll have people around them being like, yeah, this is a bad idea. And like, those people just get rid of them.
I mean, some of them are stupid, but there are plenty of people who are maliciously behaving as though they're stupid. And for the record, this is why I always said in my coverage of this genocide and numerous other conflicts, like if you want to understand what is happening in real time, what I provide to you is a somewhat valuable service. If you want to understand what's happening after the fact, yeah, go to mainstream media, go to the New York Times. They'll be 12 months late to the game. And even then, they will refuse to use the proper language that they've been deploying against Russia, understandably, saying this right now, okay, and failing to mention the actual clear-cut, well-defined red lines that Biden offered to Israel when Israel decided to permanently annex North Gaza and started starving out the North Gaza population. That's because this video was shot before then, and they didn't release it until, yesterday. Not Rafah. I'm talking about the North Gaza red lines that were well established. We know because Ken Klippenstein and many other journalists intercepted the documents and revealed them, where Biden openly wrote a red line saying that weapons transfers would completely halt. If Israel did not abide by international human rights standards and allowed in 350 trucks of aid a day into North Gaza. Israel never abided by those standards, and Biden continued, predictably, sending in weapons so that Israel could continue doing its genocide. The hand-wringing is so funny. Like, they just can't even openly be like, yes, dude, yes, Israel is doing a genocide, and yes, of course, we're allowing it to happen. Obviously, they won't go that far, but it's just, like, hilarious that they're just like, yeah, I guess you could say that. I guess Israel, maybe does get, maybe is placed in a unique predicament. First of all, technically, this is not true. Okay? America does not give a single shred of a shit what our allies do with the weapons that we give them. If you think that America does, you are delusional. Okay? Usually, though, this is done through covert operations, and we offer logistics and also training to paramilitary groups that end up committing atrocities, okay? Like in the case in many Latin American countries that we have actively destabilized. So it's not necessarily unique to Israel in that regard. The only difference is like Israel is doing this in broad daylight, in real time, while also still trying to create this false notion that they're abiding by international rules and international standards, even though everybody understands that that's not the case. And whenever the UN has to say anything about it, they just like say, okay, shut up. No, who cares? But the reality of the matter is American history is riddled with weapons transfers to our allies that have conducted numerous atrocities. America literally trained the Sri Lankan government and gave them the final assault strategy against the LTTE in 2006. Indonesia, the Jakarta method, virtually every Latin American country that we have overthrown and destabilized. I don't know. I can't think of a time when America has respected international law.
Something interesting to watch is like fundamentally the people like being interviewed believe in the American project. So like the hand wringing feels like a side result of like, yes, the reason we need to be there is valid and real, but I don't appreciate this part of it. But they believe in like this like democracy project.
All right, so that's insane. That's an absolute insane piece of coverage. Unexpected, I'll admit. It's kind of wild to see mainstream press openly covering truths about what's going on in Gaza, even if it's, very late. Here's some critique coming from others, understandably. Isn't there something sickening about these prestige media journals who report on the most obvious and accessible facts in the world a year and a half too late, and then sit there all serious like they're Woodward and fucking Bernstein? Yeah. And also, they didn't release this until, there was 7 days out. Until Biden was out of office. Like, think about that. That Israel conducted in Lebanon, that killed children, by the way. An act of terror that former CIA heads openly recognized as an act of terror, by the way. It was a violation of numerous international laws. They called it genius.
I think they're I remember people being like, oh, it's the most restrained act, precision. It's like, no, this is a terrorist act, guys. Like, by definition.
Yeah. Anyway, too little, too late. And it's, the important takeaway here is I mean, the questions one must ask is like, why are they doing this now? Okay. And here's a victim, by the way. I'm going to trigger warning. This is horrifying, but this is a victim of the pager bombing attack. I was playing on my phone at home. I heard the pager ring. I didn't know the sound. I grabbed it and barely had time to press OK before it exploded. Numerous people. I'm not sure it's a terrorist act as a global war act. No, it is.
No, it's explicitly an act of terrorism by like all, because it's like the methods by which you have to make. What is it about?
You can't use common household goods, or like goods used for communication, and booby trap them, and infiltrate the supply chain.
Like, I think the only explicit defense, now this is all coming back to my memory, the only explicit defense that it's not technically an act of terrorism or a violation of the Geneva Convention is that Israel didn't ratify that section.
Yeah.
Like didn't sign on for that part.
It's 100% an act of terrorism. You can't booby trap common household goods. You can't disrupt supply chains, and put explosive material inside of things that you have no control over who will end up handling. And it's a terror attack because it ended up, I mean, they killed a bunch of paramedics, medical staff, Lebanese parliamentary officials. Like, it's not like they were only assassinating leadership within within Hezbollah, which already in and of itself is a tricky paradigm to begin with. You exploded pagers not knowing where they were.
It also
killed a 9-year-old girl.
It also falls in the category where it's like the places these people have to be also have to be explicitly military. Like, you can't bomb non-military places indiscriminately in that way. There's so many. It violates it in multiple degrees. I can't remember his name, but there's a military lawyer who was in the State Department for a long time who wrote an entire thing about this and I his stance on whether or not it violated it.
Yeah, it's a clear definitional act of terror. Christian, I still want to talk to you about TikTok, but I have an interview that I have to do with NBC.
Good.
Is it okay at 5:30?
Yeah.
So I'll just do that. I'll conduct the NBC interview here, and then after that, we'll talk about TikTok. Is that all right by you?
Yeah, that's true.
You don't have to leave yet. And it's up to you if you want to stay.
No,
That's my mom.
I'm chilling. Oh, okay, cool.
Okay. And we can start talking about TikTok as well. I'm not kicking him out. All right, chat, calm down.
He's actually sending me straight to Crenshaw.
Yeah.
Jack in the Box I love.
All right, we can watch this
Let me be clear.
Philip DeFranco coverage first. And then afterwards, let's see what Philip DeFranco said. I think he gave me a shout out here somewhere when he was talking about the wildfires, maybe. Where is it? Am I crazy? But also I'm going to be talking to NBC Now about the the incarcerated firefighters, but also we're going to be talking about TikTok because apparently there is really concerning news about TikTok.
Oh, really? In this moment?
Yeah. Are you looking it up? It's on the screen. It's on my second screen. Bloomberg Technologies. Chinese officials are evaluating a potential option that involves Elon Musk acquiring TikTok's U.S. operations if the company fails to fend off a controversial ban on the app.
Yo, of all the fucking... All right. Wow. All right. Okay. This is the worst option. This is the worst. I'd rather it get banned.
Evil keeps winning, man. Evil keeps winning. All right, let's see this.
Exploitative and saying that they're not making enough money considering the risk they're taking. But this is reportedly for people behind bars, this is actually a very coveted job. Where reportedly most inmate fire crew members also receive time credits, often getting 2 days off their sentence for every day they serve on a crew. With one formerly incarcerated firefighter even telling the LA Times, every single firefighter that is out there right now, I'm sure they're proud to be there. But also every single one of those people has signed away their rights for any sort of compensation if they die on the fire ground. And then actually with all this, over the weekend we got an even closer look into what this all looks like on the ground. With us seeing, among other things, political commentator Hasan Piker actually going out and interviewing some of the incarcerated firefighters on a stream. And one of the things you definitely see is them sort of echoing a sense of pride.
The return that we get is our second chance at life. You know, this is a pilot program. You know, a lot of us made decisions before our brain was able to develop, before the age of 25, you know, so I mean, this is our second chance, and this is our second chance to prove it.
But these second chances, they're not always easy, with reports noting that once these inmates are released, many have trouble getting firefighting jobs even though they have all this experience. Which is why we saw Hasan writing and many agreeing that many deserve this chance, that they do not deserve to be cast aside and dehumanized. And among those who agree with this idea, you had Kim Kardashian, who advocated for them over the weekend, calling them heroes and urging Gavin Newsom to raise their wages. With some people even starting fundraisers to support incarcerated firefighters. But for now, that is where we are.
How did guys do that fast?
Typical guest experience.
Not soldiers is wild.
Just a chill guy showing you the fantastic and totally normal practice of extraction, semen extraction.
Oh my God. On the firefighters thing, I think it's really interesting the way that people talk about that, because I didn't get to see all of what you interviewed and talked to those folks about, but it's one of those things where like my dad spent a bunch of time in prison, like 17 years, and sort of like the opportunity that you get is valuable from a position of just like feeling like you can do things in prisons, but is explicitly like exploitative slavery. Like just like even if it's like a beneficial program, it's like they still, if you're putting your life in danger or just for any regular ass labor, like
I think the reality is like the reality of the matter is one thing that I got from talking to every single person there was that the conditions, because they go to fire camp, they're no longer in like a level 1 or level 2 state penitentiary where they go to a different they go to a conservation camp, and the conservation camp conditions are infinitely better than prison. So that alone is, you know, and the fact that they get to shave time off their sentence is the coercive element. It's a good thing ultimately. It's not a bad thing. It's a good program. But like that motivation can only happen if prison is awful.
Yeah, like it's inherently exploitative to where it's like, hey, like you'll be putting your life in danger, the most dangerous situation we can potentially think of. And that to you is like, that's the good thing. That's the benefit. That's the time out. It's fulfilling, but it's inherently prison is life that's soul sucking and destroying.
Yeah. So there is it's still done under incredibly coercive conditions, because you're like freedom is the only thing. If freedom is the only thing you demand, is the only thing you can think of, and this gives you an easier pathway towards that freedom, then yeah, it's still absolutely has the same coercive element of slavery.
Yeah.
So, you know, I I definitely am no longer as like I think it's a good program overall, but especially not even because of the sentence reduction that comes along with it, which, you know, sentences are far too long to begin with.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly more in favor of the program than I was initially after talking to the people there and after talking to Scott Budnick, who runs the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, who really pushed to get this pilot program launched, where these guys with the red hats from Garlesburg camp, they actually are not only youth offenders, but they're violent offenders. Normally, if you have a violent offense, you can't join this program at all. But because these guys were violent youth offenders, but under the age of 25, when they committed these crimes, when their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, the state has allowed them this opportunity to engage in sentence reduction and participate in this program. And they're all dope. I mean, they're super cool guys. But what is this? Incarcerated firefighter camp inundated with video games following Hasan Piker interview, but others still need help. Oh my God. Oh my God. We sent them too many video games. Oh no. We've been inundated with calls on that. We got all we need here. The representative told Aftermath. Donations are always welcome, but be careful as to what type of things are donated to camp. I mean, ping pong paddles and pool sticks and stuff like that are fine, but when you get into video games and stuff, and then you get inundated, we don't have the capability or the need for all that stuff. Washington Ridge is one camp. There are 36 total under California Department of Corrections. That's crazy.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's a...
Yeah. These are my gaming. This is my gaming team, my gaming editing team.
Nice. Collector's edition Among Us. Shout out.
Oh no. That's crazy.
Yeah. I do find it really interesting. It's like one of those things where it's like, it's fundamentally an unbelievably busted system. And so it's kind of like, it's a Band-Aid in that system where it's like the program itself or the conditions beneficial in a lot of ways, especially for the people, especially for like morale and a lot of things. But like fundamentally, this only exists when things are as fucked as they are.
Yeah. Alders, when he has an Xbox version unspecified and a rep added, we only have so many TVs, so the camp is pretty set on games for now. But he continued, it's one break away from not having one. He noted, for example, 7,000 in gym equipment succumbed to the ravages of wear and tear after just a month, so there's no guarantee that game consoles remain functional indefinitely. All this in mind, if you got a spare Xbox, feel free to send it. Those incarcerated at Deadwood 23, like their counterparts at Washington Ridge 44, have access to PS4, and they're always looking for games, according to a representative of the facility. The only restriction is that the games have to be playable offline. Otherwise, games of any age rating is fine. Growlersburg is also good on games, while Norco and Cuesta use a different system than all the other camps, going through the CDCR instead of fielding donations directly. The big takeaway, if you'd like to send your spare games or anything else to incarcerated firefighters, call ahead. Each facility has different needs, and if you want to be sure your donations are reaching their intended recipients. There's also the option to donate money to incarcerated firefighters, either via organizations like the Anti-Recidivism Coalition or to specific individuals by way of JPay. Check out Trump's Twitter. Wait, what did he say?
Although before you lock into MSNBC, do you know about the Angola prison rodeo?
Yeah, of course.
Dude, I'm from like mad close to there, and I don't know if people know about that shit. Have you ever talked about it?
Yeah, I have. And also Gremlo, who is a friend of the show, he's another Twitch streamer. He actually did a documentary there as well.
Yeah. And like when I think about like kind of just like the layers of like coercive elements where it's like, yeah, like this is still like time off, commissary value, getting this. It's like, yeah, these are people will want to participate in these programs.
Yeah, Gremlo and Cinemarxism made a documentary about it.
Yeah, it gets to me.
He's posting boomer memes. That's what you wanted me to see?
For a second time. Brock, very nice to see you.
Congratulations. How you doing?
A lot better, Dad.
Yeah, I bet. No, you'd win.
Oh, really? Oh, come on. Anyone could beat her.
Kidding
She's
me?
just...
I was just as appalled. You know what happened? He just didn't want to leave.
I know.
Is what happened.
I did what I could to help her. She was horrendous.
I know. You know what I realized? Hillary still hates me. So much. I know. She'll never forget me. We should meet to discuss
I
this.
think so too. We can definitely set something up. Let me know whatever
Oh, we
works
got
best
it.
for you.
I was gonna fly back to Florida tomorrow for the golf.
Okay.
Who's this for? I mean, I know who it's for. But Jesus Christ.
It's for brave American patriots. What do you mean? All right, it's for real American patriots. All right, I'm gonna go into this meeting real quick, but I'll have you back to talk about TikTok in a second. It'll be a quick one. Let's get to one of the top news stories of the day: TikTok getting banned. Christian, take it away.
I actually listened to all of the. Did they announce? Because they're not supposed to announce an opinion till Wednesday. But I did listen to the entire of the what is it? The Supreme Court like open hearing, and like there's a whole thing happening right now where if you look up like any news article, it'll be like Supreme Court absolutely striking down like system, and it didn't sound that way. But it doesn't sound like TikTok has a very good case. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think that they're using whatever like legal restrictions that they can, whatever legal jargon that they can, to just like functionally take TikTok away from ByteDance, at least the U.S. operations, and give it to an American owner.
Yeah, basically that's like the one thing that it's really sitting on.